Hi, I'm Elizabeth,
And I'm Cindy.
and we're here with another Feeding Frenzy for the 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines, a simple guide to unlimited abundance. And we are remaining calm.
We're on chapter 8, day 7. Remain calm. And what
Again.
just happened? Again. What just happened? Tell everybody
Well,
what.
we just did a 15, 20-minute rant, and none of it taped. I'm remaining calm.
You know how that happens.
Why?
Because we're trying to remain calm. Second force, baby.
Yeah, I remember you talked me into doing this crap.
What
The
about it?
first one we made.
Didn't take.
Didn't take.
How upset did you get over that?
Oh, I did not remain calm.
No, you didn't.
I was mad.
Why did you get so mad about that?
Because I thought, fine, I had given in and I'll do this thing and fine.
And it didn't take.
And it didn't take.
And so you got mad at me.
And the equipment and
You got mad at
everything.
everything.
The earth that was turning, everything. I did not remain calm.
Second force. So, you're going to remain calm this time now, huh?
And not having an upset, like Edwin said.
Good. Good. So, this says to maintain composure even in trying situations by holding on to the firm belief that God is our source. So why do you think that most people, I won't say most, that a lot of people get upset when things happen and don't remain calm?
I think it's because we lose control of our emotions
Okay?
in the moment. I think we have habits, ways of dealing with things that we just have our normal go-tos that we just naturally do without even thinking about it. You know, I know several people, and I have watched, as Edwin said in the earlier chapter, people have an old-fashioned or southern hissy fits.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting back and watching that, you think, wow, that the situation doesn't call for that kind of anger, or it doesn't call for
So they blow it
that
out
spirited
proportion.
emotion. Why did it get that bad, you know? Or why can't they stop? And I think it's because we get comfortable in a habit and a way of dealing with things that we normally do. I know of some people, I'm pretty much an easygoing person, and yeah, I have my moments just like everybody else, but sitting back and watching other people have upsets, you know, I know people that are natural screamers. That's the first thing they do, and that's their tactic, and it works for them. And I think it's a habit, and I think it's what she's talking about when she's talking about remaining calm.
So,
To change our habit,
right, right.
how we normally would deal with things.
So how do you normally deal with things when you get an upset?
I don't normally explode. I normally implode.
Mm.
You know, my excess weight speaks to that. Unless I'm real close to that nerve. You know, that one the kids seem to know how to trample on. And when I'm close to that one, then I try and separate.
What do you mean by that? Separate from
Separate
everybody?
from
Oh,
whatever is causing me
Oh.
the upset.
so you're saying you stuff it or you avoid it or what?
Well, no, I try and remove myself from the situation
Oh, okay.
at first, if I can,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can get control over whatever emotion it is, whether it's anger or, you know, just being upset.
I think you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
at
I do
handling
have my
upset.
triggers, you know,
Oh yeah, we all
just
do.
like everybody else.
We all do.
What about you? What do you normally do?
Oh, I get in my head. I just
You're
get
a little turtle, aren't
in
you?
my head. But you know what? It works for me because I
It
can
does.
redirect my thinking very quickly now.
You do.
Wasn't always good at that. Well, for most part, I have been.
I was fixing to say,
Is that
that
a word?
habit is well ingrained.
But it works. I mean, you know,
You
I have
get
people
upset,
say,
you
you
just-
don't feel enough. Well, I feel
But look at
plenty.
you!
I feel plenty. I
Watch
don't want
you.
to feel a lot like some of you people do, you know? I mean, gee,
Look at you! You're pitiful. Why do I want to be pitiful like
Why
that?
do I-
Yeah, I know.
you know, I mean, really, this works for me.
You do
It's,
have a really good way of dealing with stuff. You just do. And I
Well-
envy that sometimes.
Well, thank you. I don't know how it happened. However, I mean, I guess I learned it as a kid. When I would get upset, I would just get in my head and say, oh well. Now, a lot of times I catch myself saying, let it go. I don't have time to think about that right now.
Mm.
And I just think about something else that's more exciting to me. Which is usually something really boring.
Yeah, because I asked you one time, I remember, how in the world you did that. And you told me that. And I'm thinking, how in the world do you do that in the emotion? Because I physically feel the emotion. You know, it's not just I'm angry and I can just get over it. There's a body shaking and a heat that comes with it and a...
I get that way sometimes.
And I'm thinking, how would I just change the thought in the middle of that? And I've found for myself, I've got to let that go its course. You know what I'm saying? I try and separate so that it does somewhere else.
Well,
but I've got to let that energy go before I can change the thought.
I don't know how, except that I was taught to stuff it. I mean, I was not allowed to act on emotion when I was little. I just wasn't allowed to. And so I learned how to hold it in and think about something else, I guess. I don't know how I do it, but I know I just don't feel things as much as a lot of people do. Whether that's a learned behavior or I just was blessed with that. I don't know. I have two emotions off and on, and that's about it. And I will say there are times when I get the one that I feel or that I relate to the most, or I feel like that's what emotion it is anger. When I get mad, I can get really mad, and a lot of times that brings tears for me. When I get mad, I cry, and I hate to cry. So I usually have to separate myself from the situation and get away from whatever or whoever's making me mad. And then once I've been mad for a couple minutes, I mean, that produces a lot of energy, and I usually have to do something, whether that's clean or house or go to the gym.
Ooh, I hadn't seen that one yet.
Well, I do that. Try to do something. I got to get it out, and
Clean house, that's good.
But I used to do it a lot more than I do now because I just don't let things get me that mad anymore.
Yeah.
But the energy has to go somewhere. I agree with that. Yeah. If you can't just let the energy go or feel the energy and be done with it, then you got to get it out somewhere. It's not good to stuff it.
Yeah.
I think I stuffed it for a lot of years, and I think it's been a lot of years dealing with that and getting the anger out. So I feel like I'm pretty.
So what do you do in order to get the anger out or express the energy? What do you turn to?
Now I turn to the gym most of the time, going especially on boot camp when we're doing the hitting and the kicking and the karate kind of stuff. That works for me, I think. Crying is a great way too.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is.
I do hate to cry, especially in front of people. But man, it releases a lot of energy, and it's a good way to get the emotions out. Is just to allow yourself to cry. At least that works for me. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned to do is just don't let things get to me the way they used to. It takes a whole lot to make me mad now. Whereas used to, little things would just drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And I think allowing other people to be themselves and do their thing and not trying to control the situation is the biggest thing.
Oh, that helps so much, doesn't it?
Because if I don't care what you're doing, I'm not going to get mad about it. Yeah. Right. I mean, if I'm not trying to control what you're doing. And I think one of the biggest things I've done is just to let my kids be kids and do what they want to do and not try to control them. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. But I tell you what, it sure has brought me a whole lot more peace than when I was trying to tell them what to do and how to do it and control what they were doing. So I think the control thing is a big one.
It is. It is, let you know.
So she says in here to pick one thing today, face head on a challenge that you've been avoiding and keep your cool while doing it. So what are you going to tackle?
I've had a website or two that I've been, I wouldn't say avoiding, I just couldn't figure out how to approach. You know, when you're looking at something that's a daunting task, if so, or a high heel, and you just can't figure out where do I put the first foot off. Where do I put it? You know, At some point, you just got to say, okay, well, I'm just going to step somewhere. And I may step in it. But if so, I'll wash off the bottom of the shoe. Yeah, but it's still moving forward.
Right.
It's still moving forward. And I do that a whole lot less now, but, you know, I still have my times when I feel like I'm inadequate to the task, and that helps me procrastinate.
Well, I don't think it's that you're inadequate. I think it's like we talked about earlier, we're just out of our comfort zone. And the more we step out of our comfort zone, the better, because we're learning and we're growing.
Yeah.
But it's still hard. I have one of those projects myself.
Yeah, and so what's your project?
This presentation I'm working on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's overwhelming for one thing, but it's just out of my comfort zone. It's not something I do every day. So it's hard to figure out where to jump in, like you said. But sitting back on it and not doing it is not helping either.
Right.
And the closer it gets to the deadline, the more harder it is to remain calm. You know?
Yeah.
But as we talked about earlier on the video that didn't make it, I think it's easy for us to do the things we're comfortable with and to put those first.
Sure.
We think we'll just knock those out and get them done, and then we'll work on that big thing later. And then later turns into, oh my gosh, it's
here.
It's time to be done with this,
Yeah.
and I'm just now starting.
Yeah.
That's just the way I work. I'm assuming that's the way a lot of people work. Is we put things off and put things off because we don't know how to do them, or they're too big and overwhelming, and we're not very good at breaking them up into smaller pieces.
Yeah.
Or we just don't know how to get started. And getting started is the hardest part. And once we can get started and make some forward, and I think that's one thing about the goals too, is if we'll just make one forward motion on the goals, it's easier to keep something in motion than it is to start from where we're
start moving again. It really is. Yeah.
So if we'll just make one move in the right direction, then usually that's enough to get it moving forward and to get some momentum behind it. So I'm going to tackle that, and I'm going to try to remain calm.
Yeah.
How about you?
Definitely.
Remain calm.
Definitely. I'm going to try.
You're going to try.
Yeah. I'm going to tackle it until I find my stride. And then, you know, once you find your stride, it's easier to remain calm about it.
Yeah. Well, the more I get into this project, the more fun it is, and the easier it gets. And it's just starting it. It's just starting anything, you know. It's just, it's overwhelming, especially if you don't know how to do it and you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how it goes. So we're going to remain calm today.
Yeah. We can do that.
Yeah. We can.
Because you know what? That's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
Shreen.